The Culture Pop Podcast is brought to you by the law offices of Jacob Emrani.
Accident or injury, call Jacob Emrani. Call Jacob.
Hey, it's Mace. If you or a friend or loved one is injured in an accident, the first person you should call is my friend Jacob. When I did this, Jacob was great. He helped me by talking through the next steps, which really put my mind at ease. When you're injured in an accident, you got to have an expert. That's why you call Jacob, just like I did. Call Jacob, 844-24-JACOB. That's 844-24-JACOB, or visit calljacob.com.
Call Jacob.
Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Culture Pop Podcast. I'm Steve Mason, along with Sue 𝐿. This is the show where we talk about everything happening in the world of pop culture. Two guests today. First, we're going to be joined by our resident music expert, Jamie Beth, for a Grammys preview. Then we're going to catch up with actor O-T Fagbenle, who is currently starring in No Good Deed, streaming on Netflix. Sue, what's going on? How you doing? What's going on in the world of Sue?
The world of Sue. I'm playing ukulele like a mad woman. I'm really working on my strumming technique and chords. And I told you that I can play Blowing in the Wind, which I'm very excited about. And I practice every day. And it's fun. You know, I've always wanted to be the person who could just go to an instrument and just play. Like I'm at someone's house and there's a guitar sitting around or a ukulele sitting around.
Sure.
And just be able to pick it up and just play.
Now, how often do you go to somebody's house and they just have a ukulele sitting around?
One person I know has one.
Really?
Alan 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐿.
Oh, wow. The Alan 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐿.
The Alan 𝐿𝐴𝐵𝐵𝐿.
He's got a uke.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Now, when are we going to get a concerto here on the Culture Pop Podcast?
Soon. You know, I'm almost off book. Like I have to kind of, I look at the chords, you know, a little bit, but I'm almost at the point where I can just play it without looking at sheet music.
Nice. Well, you know what I've been doing too much of? Drinking. I've been drinking too much.
What do you mean you're drinking? I thought you weren't drinking.
I wasn't drinking, and then I was. I never promised to have a dry January. I'm not dry January guy. But we got this real cool bar in our neighborhood called the Accomplice Bar, and they've got all these fancy drinks, you know, like mixologist kind of stuff. And I like going through the menu, and I'm trying each single drink one night at a time. But I've got to stop because, you know, I've been working out like a crazy person, and my weight is inching up, which is not good. It's not all muscle. Part of that is alcohol. So I'm dialing that part of it back, and I'm going to go to eating really strictly because we're less than 60 days till my 60th birthday.
I know. And you really have to make an appearance.
I do. I've got to present myself in the right way for 60. So I'm going to keep cranking away on that. In the meantime, we're going to talk some Grammys. I'm really excited for our first guest. She is a big Culture Pop Podcast listener. She reached out to me to talk about her music background, and she really knows her stuff. Jamie Beth joins us. Jamie Beth, thanks a lot for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. I'm good.
So tell us how you found the Culture Pop Podcast. I know you originally reached out to me. You're a viewer, listener of the Culture Pop Podcast. How'd you find us?
Yes. So I actually found you guys right after the Emmys, and I was looking for a podcast that would recap the Emmys, different categories that I was interested in hearing opinions about, particularly the whole debacle with The Bear not being a comedy.
Yes.
And winning all of those awards. And I remember, Sue, you were particularly passionate about The Bear not properly being in the right category. So I felt very aligned with the discussion that you guys had, and I felt like I would love to have that discussion as well and share my opinions, but it was great to hear that reflected in a way that made sense to me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, this is fun. This is fun for us to have you on.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
someone who
this
is a listener and then comes on as a guest. I mean, come on.
Yeah, this is awesome.
It's like a game show.
Truly, yeah, and I can't wait to talk music with you guys. I love hearing your takes on TV and movies, and I admit I'm not as caught up on all of the shows as I should be or could be, but music is really some category that I think I shine in. So I can't wait to talk Grammys and music with you guys.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, you definitely know more about it than we do. I know a lot of music. Sue, how do you feel about your music Grammy knowledge?
Pretty good. You know, I actually did my homework with some of the artists that I wasn't really
Awesome.
familiar with.
Yeah.
Because usually I'm like, you know, sometimes I'm a little bah humbug because, you know, I'm 67. So not that I don't want to be up on a lot of music, but a lot of the newer music, some stuff I don't even listen to. Like I haven't even listened to it and I have a judgment about it. So it was really, really refreshing and educational for me to listen to these artists that I didn't even know.
Amazing. I'm so curious to hear your takes, especially on some of the artists that you're maybe not as familiar with.
So why don't we start with the show itself? Trevor Noah is going to be hosting again. He's done a really good job in the past. Who are some of the performers? I mean, I saw the list. The list looks amazing, right?
Yes. So it's actually interesting because the Grammys just today dropped a new promo for the show saying that Beyonce and Taylor will be there, but they did not say that they are performing.
Ah.
They released the first batch of performers last week, including Billie Eilish, Sabrina Carpenter, Chappell Roan, Charlie XCX. I'd say those are the top 4 big artists to be watching for on the show. So they are confirmed to perform, those 4. However, 3 big names that are not yet slated to perform are, like I said, Beyonce and Taylor, and then Kendrick Lamar.
He's not confirmed.
He's not confirmed, but he is headlining the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah.
So that could be why, if he's not performing on the show because he's nominated for Record of the Year and Song of the Year, that could be why he's not performing with Super Bowl coming up.
Now, do you think that the producers of the Grammys, when they think of some of the big names that I'm sure a lot of viewers are going to want to see, they're like, "Ugh," like, damn, you know, because those are big gets. And I think that is what is an attraction to watching the Grammys.
Definitely. And I think with the performers this year, they're really catering to that Gen Z millennial audience, particularly with Sabrina and Chappell and Charlie and Billie. So I think they know what they're doing and they know who to promote in order to attract those ratings. But I think Taylor is also a huge part of that conversation. And even if she's not performing, you know, the camera will pan to her as much as it possibly can. Same with Beyonce. I remember last year she arrived shortly before her category was announced, and they made sure to get as many shots of her as they could. But she didn't perform last year either. So I think it's interesting. I think if they could get Taylor and they could get Beyonce, they would do it in a heartbeat.
Yeah.
But they're both so big and they've come off such large tours that it's difficult to get them to scale back for a award show performance at this point.
One of the things I love about Taylor, though, is she seems to know the words to everybody else's songs. So she stands and she sings along and she's so into it. It's one of the things I think that makes her so likable.
I agree. I love that about her. I always have. I actually remember last year during the Tracy Chapman, Luke Combs performance at
Yeah.
Star, she was upstanding, one of the only ones knowing every word. And it's very fun to watch. Even if they do that audience cam that you can usually find on Twitter or something afterwards, and you get more of those crowd shots, it's always so fun to see her having fun at these things.
Yeah, well, I think it's also very respectful of her to do
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
So
classy.
let's talk about record of the year. One of the things, and we mentioned Taylor Swift. She's got Fortnite with Post Malone, which was a big hit this year. The Beatles Now and Then is interesting because it started as an original recording, and then they used some AI to kind of doctor it up. I'm not sure how I feel about that. And of course, Beyonce's in there. How do you view this category?
So for record of the year, I think it's very unlikely that it goes to anything but espresso.
Really?
And Yeah, I am of the mind that that song has been so huge, and the Grammys are actually using that song in the promotion of the show. So I think that that is a big clue as to their leaning. And of course, we don't know how Grammy voters have filled out their ballots, but I think that's a clue. If I were to place a bet, I would say record would go to Espresso.
Okay. What do you think, Sue?
I just think Taylor Swift's Fortnite is just such an amazing collection of songs. And just from the stories, the personal aspect, um, I just that's my bet. But maybe because she wins so much, it'll go to somebody else. But that's what I think record of the year should be.
Of the records here, Kendrick Lamar, Not Like Us, is a gigantic record, especially here in LA, because of the East Coast rap thing and Drake and all that stuff. It was huge here. I actually like Beyonce, This Ain't Texas and This Ain't Hold'em. I mean, to me, that was one of the really interesting performances of the year. Her whole album, I thought it's an interesting marriage between R&B and country. I think she did that. I think Shaboozey did that. I think Jelly Roll did that. This sort of R&B country crossover thing that we saw. So if I had a vote, I think I would vote for Beyonce, Texas Hold'em. Although I'll say Billie Eilish, this is like a happy song for Billie Eilish. It's like an upbeat song, which we haven't really seen.
It is, and she performed it at the closing ceremony for the Olympics, previewing 2028 in LA, and that was, I think, a very indicative marker of how big that song has become. And I don't know if it was even anticipated to be a single originally, because I believe her lead single off of that album was actually called Lunch, and that was like the big pop dance track, and it was previewed at Coachella. But I think once the album dropped, that song, Birds of a Feather, just took off, and it's huge. And like you said, it's her happy moment.
Yes.
Following What Was I Made For last year, which was very emotional. It's interesting, that tonal shift.
So let's talk about Song of the Year. Again, Beyonce's in here, Texas Hold'em. Although there is one song, I'll be curious what you say, Jamie Beth. There's one song in here that I think absolutely must win. Who do you like?
So it's interesting because Songwriter of the Year being a songwriter award versus Record of the Year, I feel is which song was the biggest, which had the biggest impact maybe on the radio or on streaming or even TikTok, honestly, because that's how songs blow up these days. So which made the biggest splash versus Songwriter of the Year being an award for the songwriters. I could see Song of the Year going to Birds of a Feather because it is just Billie and her brother Phineas, as opposed to some of the other songs on the list. Texas Hold'em, for example, which I also love and really enjoy, has, I believe, 6 or 7 writers credited, which is not to say that that's a bad thing or that the song has less merit than a song with just 2 co-writers. I don't know how the Grammys view it, but I think sometimes they like to honor less writers in the room.
Right.
That way.
Sue, what do you like in that category?
Taylor Swift.
Oh, you're going Taylor Swift again.
I am. And, I'm probably going to be wrong on a few of these, but maybe all of them. But I think her songwriting is just on a level that is just higher than so many people. The depth of her writing is just, I just don't think people write like she does.
Yeah. And very personal. That's what makes her unique, is it's all really personal stuff. For me, Song of the Year, and I think New Artist of the Year, Shaboozey, Bar Song. I think that was like one of the big songs of the year. Bargain Tipsy. I mean, I love that song. I love everything Shaboozey did. I think it should win Song of the Year. That would be my vote.
I love that. I think that would be an inspired choice, especially with the CMAs being kind of lame in the way that they've treated him and treated Beyonce this year. Shaboozey also was a part of the Beyonce album. So he wrote a few songs on Cowboy Carter. And I think he's had a huge year, and it would be amazing to see him recognized too. I think he's on the performers list as well, I'm pretty sure.
Good. I saw Teddy Swims is on the performer list, and I'm a huge Teddy Swims fan too. All right, the big one, album of the year. It's Sue, are you going to go Taylor Swift?
What are the odds that I'm going with Taylor Swift?
They're high?
They're pretty high. Yeah, I am
You're
going
calling
with
for
Taylor
a sweep,
Swift.
right?
I am going for a sweep. And again, just for the reasons that I just think that she is such a force to be reckoned with. And not to say that some of these other artists aren't amazing. Like, I listen to Chappell Roan. I never listened to anything she did. Sabrina Carpenter. I really like their music. I think it's fun. But I think, again, I'm also coming on the heels of A Complete Unknown. So the bar is so high for me when it comes to lyrics. Because to me, no one was a better songwriter than Bob Dylan. So when somebody's lyrics are kind of fun, like I listen to Sabrina Carpenter, it's like, it's fun. But for me, it just isn't on the same level as Taylor Swift. So I'm going there. But I want to say one thing about Andre 3000.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know before I did some research that it's all instrumental. And I thought, wow, I mean, that's a really high honor to put him in this category, being nominated. But I don't think he's going to win.
So I will just point out that Beyonce has won 32 Grammys.
Right.
She's been nominated 99 times. She has never won Album of the Year. I really like her to win here. I think she broke the idea of what country music is. She established her own path in this. The Super Bowl or the Christmas Day performance was great. Shaboozey showed up for that. Amazing. So I like Beyonce to win her first Album of the Year award, but I think I know which way you're going to go, Jamie Beth.
So yeah, it's interesting. Back in December, early December, if you would have asked me who is going to win Album of the Year, I would have said Beyonce easily because of a couple of reasons. And one of those reasons was actually not what people were saying, which was last year when Jay-Z came on stage and he made a comment about, I don't think he named Beyonce directly, but he said something to the effect of, how is it that the artist who's been the most nominated at the Grammys has never won the biggest award?
Yep.
And I think there's like a 50-50 consensus on people who think that helped her, propelling her into this year. And the other side is it hurt her going into this year.
That's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, because him showing up and saying that makes it feel like if she does win, did she only win because he got up on stage and made that speech? So I was thinking about it in early December, and I was like, I think it's really a wash because it was such a moment and it is so overdue that I think it's not even going to have the impact, positive or negative, that people thought. So I would have said Beyonce. But then towards the end of December, there was a shift.
Yeah.
And even without the allegations that came out about Jay-Z in December, which are horrific, and
Yes.
I put out a statement
denying and all that stuff, yeah.
Right. So I don't know to what extent Grammy voters would hold that against Beyonce. But separately of that, I believe that Charli XCX.
I knew you were going to take Charli XCX.
Yeah, I think that she's really ramped up her campaign for this. She did double duty on SNL. The Grammy voting materials were wrapped in green with the Brat logo. Her team has put a ton of marketing and money behind this Grammy campaign. And I just think that it's going to take away some split votes because it was a very single name moment this year. If you just said that word, the fact that it became so ubiquitous with, having a brat summer, coining an entire season and aligning that with your own moment of material, I think is pretty iconic, whether the music is for you or not. It's not my favorite album of the year, but I do think it had a huge impact. And I think that's going to be an upset.
You think Brat will go for the upset? I knew you're very Brat yourself. Are you Brat?
I guess I am Brat. I mean, if Kamala is Brat, which Charlie said Kamala is Brat, then I'm very happy to take that title as well.
There you go. Hey, listen, Jamie Beth, this has been so much fun. We would love to have you back when we talk music again. Thank you very much for listening and for watching, and we appreciate you a lot.
Thank you guys so much. This was so fun, and thank you again for having me. This was great.
There you have it, Jamie Beth. Very nice job. She reached out to us, and I mean, I'm so impressed with her knowledge, and it's very cool.
Yeah, I just love the fact that we had somebody on who is a fan of the show, and kind of, you made the suggestion, hey, let's have somebody on who's just a listener.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I remember my first reaction was like, I don't know. I mean, do we really want to do something like that? But you made a great case for it, and I'm glad we did it, because she was she was really smart.
She's very smart, and she definitely knows her stuff, especially in music, where it's not my main. By the way, do you know the song "Tipsy" by Shaboozey?
I do. I listened to it.
Yeah, it's a great song. It's a great song.
It's really fun. And like I said, there were a lot of songs, like even the song that what's his name did with oh God, Lady Gaga and Bruno Mars.
Bruno Mars, yeah.
That song was also so much fun, and I don't listen to Bruno Mars that much, but it was a great duet.
I saw them in concert. I saw him in concert at the Intuit Dome, and she came out and did that song, that "Die with a Smile" song, and it was so cool, so cool. Well, if you are listening or watching and you have some island of expertise, reach out to us. I'm trying to think, how do they reach out to us, Sue? I guess you go to my stevemason.com, and there's a little contact form. You can send us a message and tell us about yourself, and who knows, you could be on the show like Jamie Beth. We'll definitely call on her again when we talk music. Hey, I want to remind everybody, if you're watching on YouTube right now, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave us a comment or a review or an idea. Maybe you've got a vote on who you would choose for album of the year or song of the year or record of the year. Would love to hear you about that. If you're listening on Apple or Spotify, subscribe to the show. Big points if you leave us a 5-star rating and a review. We appreciate that. And of course, if you've got a friend who this show is perfect for, definitely let them know about. Always recruiting new listeners and new viewers. All right, well, joining us now is O-T Fagbenle. He is probably best known for his work in The Handmaid's Tale. He has also starred in Marvel's Black Widow, played President Obama in The First Lady, and wrote and directed and starred in the TV series Maxxx. His current project is the Netflix series No Good Deed, also starring Lisa Kudrow and Ray Romano. O-T, thank you so much for doing this. Thank you so much for coming on.
Oh, no, very glad to be here.
So we both watched Good Deed, No Good Deed. It is terrific. Love Ray Romano, love Lisa Kudrow, terrific cast. How did this project with Liz Feldman actually wind up on your desk? How did you wind up in it?
Well, my wonderful agent, Julia Buchwald, told me that Liz was interested in meeting me and talked to me about the project and sent me down the script. And of course, I read the script and it was great. But really, I went to lunch with Liz, and, of course, I'd watched the show, which was brilliant. But hearing about her and her process really excited me about working with her. She's got comedy bones. And of course, this great cast. So it was like somewhat of a no-brainer.
Yeah, she's got a certain style that I think is so appealing. It's dark comedy. It's very serious subject matter, but a lot of the dialogue is actually very funny.
Yeah.
So she really toes that line.
Yeah.
And I'm curious about your character, because you're kind of sandwiched in between your newlywed wife who's pregnant and your overbearing mother-in-law. where did you find this character? I mean, have you ever experienced having to deal with something like that in your life?
It was very easy, to be honest. I relate. I'm a people pleaser, and so I kind of related to like this kind of like tension between, different factions. I come from a very large family, and there's in balancing and managing. I'm kind of like a middle child kind of energy, So anyway, that all came very naturally to me. And what's funny is, the lady who played my mom would kind of play her, be like that off camera as well as on camera, and so we were kind of had this like weird, but really fun kind of like, I don't know, method comedy. We're making a new genre. It's method comedy we were doing. And so, yeah, anyway, so it was pretty easy.
Anna Maria Horsford, right, is the name of that
The
actress who plays your
legend,
mom.
Anna Maria Horsford.
It looks like you two had just like immediate chemistry.
Yeah, it was really like that. And she's just hilarious. And she's super smart. She's got this incredible memory. She's very observant, very quick-witty, and sharp-tongued. I mean, yeah, she's a hoot.
So, I'm very curious about, because I had no idea you were British until I saw you in an interview, because I've never seen you in anything where you were British, right? And it's always like, what? He's British? Where did that come from?
Another one? Yeah.
But I always wonder how somebody who doesn't, who is not American, how they find the accent, because there's a lot of regional in the States, And what's the process? I mean, do you try out different ways of speaking? You sample it until you land on something that feels authentic?
Yeah, it depends, really. I mean, like when I first learned my American accent, I just to say, especially for Black actors, with respect to, playwrights like Che Walker and Roy Williams, the best playwrights for Black actors have been American. And so lots of my first plays were written by like Lorraine Hansberry, the very first play I ever did, Le Bronx. And so, although that wasn't an American accent, I've had to learn an American accent just because of my theater career when I first started. And then when I got to the States, the bar had to be set a little bit higher about how authentic it was. So I just spent like tireless hours working on it. Now I've got a little bit more of my mouth around the dialect. The first thing for every actor is the script. I read the script. Someone mentions he was brought up in New York. Someone mentions that he went to college in Boston or whatever. And then I start exploring. And it's not necessary, I think, for every character to kind of, I think every character tells a story with the way he speaks. But it's, I try to avoid trying to do a voice for everything. I just kind of follow my intuitions with the script, I guess.
So why is it that when Brits do an American accent, it sounds more convincing than when Americans do a British accent? Because I think Americans doing a British accent, it comes across as fakey sometimes. By the way, I also think it's amazing to me that there aren't more American actors cast in British roles, which is also surprising to me. You guys really have taken over.
Yeah, well, I think there are a couple of reasons for it. And by the way, there are some really good examples of Americans doing British accents. Brad Pitt did a really amazing Irish. But I think the two main reasons. Number one is we consume a lot more American content than you guys consume English content. So growing up, I was watching Family Ties and Leave It to Beaver and Full House and and a bunch of like, that's what I'm now. You guys may have had a little Fawlty Towers or something else in your some Doctor Who, but it wasn't show after show after show after show of America. So that's one thing, is that our ear is more attuned to it. The other thing is that funny enough, we have this immigrant mentality. Like we're the ones who make it over that are, apart from being very lucky, are the ones who just we need it and we need to get into America. We need to be able. Whereas most American actors don't have a mentality. I've got to get into England, And so I think there's a kind of survivor bias going on as well there.
You did a series about first ladies. Was it The First Lady? Is that what it was called?
Yeah, that's right.
Where you played Barack Obama, and that also is a tricky area because there's a fine line between parroting somebody. How long did it take you to capture him and his essence and his mannerisms.
I mean, it was probably the hardest thing I've ever tried to do as an actor, and because if you're playing Lincoln, no one's going to say, "Oh, Lincoln didn't speak like that." And even if you're playing Nixon or Bush or something, like how familiar people are with the way that people speak pales in comparison to this very, very recent presidents, who, by the way, we have more footage of than any other, maybe not any other human being at that time. He was the social media president. And so learning how to do that was really challenging. I had about 3 to 4 months. And I looked under every nook and cranny. I listened to his books again. I listened to his recordings on YouTube. And I even reached out to some impersonators. Because, you say it's a thin line between parody and what's parody and rock? But anyway, doing it truthfully. But at the end of the day, those impersonators have specific heuristics that they built around the intellect of Obama. And I found them really useful and just getting me into the ballpark, because I'd never done anything like that before.
Well, when we've had on guests who did impressions, and I started out, I used to do stand-up comedy, and when I first started, I was an impressionist, and I used to watch other impressionists. I never really watched the actor I was doing. I watched the impressionist because for some reason, the fact that they were doing it clicked more like, oh, that's how they got it.
Right. Because they lean on the things which kind of like poke out as like, oh yeah, those are the things. What I was going to say though is, what were your favorite impressions that you would do?
Oh, I started when I was very young. I mean, I was like in elementary school when I started. So I did John Kennedy, because there was an album that came out when I was a kid that was about the first family. It was called The First Family. And so I just walked around the house doing John Kennedy.
What does John Kennedy sound like? I didn't even know.
No. They were giving a tour of the house, and he was in the bathroom, and he was pointing to things, and then he said, "And the rubbish one is mine."
Pretty good.
But Buck Henry was one of the writers. I mean, it was very, very funny.
The other thing is, I think about impressions is we wind up doing impressions of the actual impressionists as opposed to like Dana Carvey used to do George, was it George H.W. Bush, where he would say Naganda.
Yeah. Wouldn't be prudent. Wouldn't be prudent.
Exactly. 1,000 points of light. All that stuff. So we wind up doing impressions like Christopher Walken. I think everybody is doing an impression of. Do you think that started with Jay Moore, Sue? I thought Jay was one of the first people to do the Christopher Walken impression.
Yeah. Well, he did a lot of obscure. He did Andrew McCarthy. He did people where you would say, how the hell did you figure out how to do Andrew McCarthy? But like years ago, like Frank Gorshin and David Fry and Rich Littrell, they were like the 3 top guys, and their approach was all completely different. Like Frank Gorshin contorted his face, like he did Kirk Douglas, and he did his chin jut out. I mean, and even Jim Carrey, the same thing. He was a lot more physical.
Right.
Yeah.
So I remember you well from Black Widow, which is a gigantic movie. I love Florence Pugh. I'm a huge fan. She made me laugh a lot in that movie, and Scarlett Johansson's terrific. What's it like when you're part of an ensemble like that, where it's just a gigantic movie? And then what's it like to be part of the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
Well, fun fact, first of all, is that Florence Pugh and I went to the same primary school, same elementary school, same like kindergarten, whatever you guys call it.
Wow.
Albeit a few years apart. We won't go into the details of how many years, but it's a very small school on the south coast of Spain, of all places, that we end up anyway. So what's it like? You know what's really funny is that while I was shooting Mole, I mean, great honor. First of all, it's the pantheon of our times. But what was funny is that I wrote and directed and acted in a show called Maxxx, which is on Hulu. Go watch it. I mean,
which, by the way, I watched the first 2 episodes last night, and it is friggin' hilarious. Yeah.
Thanks so much. Yeah, well, I was filming Maxxx. I was in pre-production for Maxxx at the same time as I was shooting Marvel, and as which can happen when you're like, you know, I'm making something which is my heart, and I put my heart and soul, it's semi-autobiographical, and and then I'm doing this big Marvel movie, but all I can think about, not all I can think, I was just obsessed with making this first show and doing this thing, which was going to be really hard for me to do, which is like to write and act and thing. And so it's funny because it was almost like Marvel was my side gig. And I was like trying to write and direct this thing. I was like, oh God, it's Marvel thing. And when I was on set, of course, it's like, it's incredible because you're working with like the best of the best. And Florence is incredible. And Scarlett was just one of those few actors I've worked with who is opposite you. And immediately you're like, oh geez, this is what a movie star is. Like she like, it's just electric on camera. So anyway, it was a funny experience because on one side, it was like the biggest thing that had happened to my career. And I was working with the biggest stars I've worked with in my career kind of thing. And on the other side, I was like really focused on this indie TV project that I was doing for tuppence.
What I love about the MCU is that, you know, years ago, and certain actors were just, I guess, kind of typecast. I mean, you know, you wouldn't see James Stewart do anything like really too much out of the ordinary. I mean, I think he had kind of a mean-spirited role in a Alfred Hitchcock movie, but you know, Humphrey Bogart would never do comedy. You know what I mean? And now you see, you know, amazing actors are part of this genre, and I would think for you, it's like I look at it as like you guys are like, it's like being part of the cool kids, you know, to be part of this. You know?
Yeah. You know, it's so fun. I totally know what you mean. And at the same time, I don't know, there's a part of me which, like, how do I put it? Like, I'm really inspired by, like, artists. And Kate, who is our director, and Scarlett and Florence, like, I was so inspired by working with them as people that to some extent, the greatness of the MCU, I think both consciously and unconsciously, I kind of like just push away. Like it's kind of like irrelevant. Like if I was doing a black box theater production, what I'm doing with these actors and with this script and this director is just as important as if I was doing an MCU. And in a way, the MCU doesn't make it like I'm going to try harder now, or like or it means I'm doing something better now. And I've done plays where there are more people in the cast than in the audience. Like they're, you know, like back end theater. And I put my entire heart and soul into those things. And and I think part of that is because the accoutrements, the fanfare, the pomp and circumstance, I try and wash away because I find it gets in the way of like my connection to the art part.
So I mentioned I was watching Max last night, which is, I think it's MAXXX.
Yeah, that's all right.
3 X's. And you play a washed up pop star who's trying to put his life back together and create a reunion with his band and all that stuff. Where's the inspiration from a show like that? And then writing, producing, is that sort of a direction where you see your career going?
Yeah, I mean, I off the back of the show, you know, I've been developing a lot of stuff for various networks, and you know, I'm hoping pretty soon we'll have some stuff to say out loud in the press about stuff that we're developing along with my brother Luti, who's a very talented producer. And but yeah, the inspiration was to be honest, I'd gone through a bit of a hard breakup, and you know, I was just feeling like a little bit of a mess, and that, you know, I was kind of lost in my life. And so I don't know, it was kind of just a bad, like, so, and the same thing kind of happens to this guy. He's a musician, and, you know, he's got this, the lady I was dating happened to become pretty famous. And so I would like see her everywhere. She would be on the buses and like that. And I was going through this terrible heartache. And so I just wanted, you know, I thought, but it was so pathetic that I thought this is amusing. And so I made it, you know.
Yeah, I love in episode 1, I love the scene at the funeral, which is just hilarious, where your character is trying to make an impression and sort of begin a comeback. And it's just so hilariously awkward. It's just awkward and weird. And there's an absurdist quality to the show, right? There's like some absurd stuff. And the funeral is like one of those things.
Yeah. It's kind of like a bit of on some level, it's also a satire of pop culture and our desire for like, we're more interested in followers than friends. And so, if you follow out the absurdity of that logic of, notoriety more than authenticity, like, where does that lead you? And it leads you to these absurd places. And we see it on YouTube and Instagram, all this, like, people just doing absurd things for that attention, for those clicks. But those are the way the incentives of the modern world have been set up.
I love that your inspiration came from a breakup. Not that I'm not happy that you had a breakup, but that you took lemons and made lemonade, I mean, I've had a lot of that experience as a comedian, being on stage, having to go on stage after like breakup or just a horrible. Usually it was breakup, led. And I remember one night, it was so raw. I mean, I just broke up with my boyfriend and I had to go on stage. And I was probably the most truthful I've ever been in my life on stage. And it was great. And I remember some guy came over to me afterwards and said, was that real? Or is that just like, just an act? And I said, I just broke up with my boyfriend. And yeah, so I love that it was inspired through that because it was, you just get really creative in those moments.
Yeah, I had an acting teacher, 𝐿 𝐵𝐴𝐴 at RADO when I was learning to become an actor, and you'd come in and you'd be like, "Oh, sorry, John, I've got a bit of a headache," and he'd be like, "Then use it in the scene," and you'd be like, you come in, stomach it. "Oh, I got something to oh, sorry, I just found out my mom." Use it, like it was no excuses. But and we would make fun of him, like, like, "Oh, we're gonna use everything, do we, John?" But actually, that is the matter. That is the marble from which we carve our art, is our life experience. And I think a big part of why people respond to art, to music, to film is that we see our own experiences reflected authentically in other people, which makes us feel somewhat less alone in the world. This heartbreak song, "Yes, you know how I feel," we are together in this. And so, yeah, when you can speak from that place, I think it does connect with people.
So I grew up in Toledo, Ohio, moved to Los Angeles. That's pretty much the book on me. There was a year in New York or 2 years in New York, but
probably a few more details than that.
You have lived everywhere. You've lived around the world, including, if I'm right, including in Nigeria. You're of Nigerian descent. Does that make you a better actor?
Yeah. No, I'm joking. I'm better than all of it. No, I don't know. It's funny. I found that a lot of actors either are army brats or kids from diplomats or people who have moved around a lot. And I don't quite know what the correlation. Maybe it is starting again. Maybe it's that you need to move around as an actor and it gives you a predisposition towards that kind of lifestyle. But I definitely think being exposed to lots of different types of people, in Nigeria, I lived both in what could be considered from Western standards very poor, like many people in a bedroom, but no consistent electricity and water. You can't brush your teeth with, let alone drink, and I also at a point lived in a marble house and we had a driver and a cook and a cleaner. Like I lived the extremes. And in Nigeria, I was considered white. I was the white kid in the class. I would go down the street, be like, "Hey, white guy, what's up?" And then moving from there to going to England, where I was like considered mixed race, and then coming to America, where I was considered African American, and then going to South Africa, where I'm considered colored. And I think seeing the ways that different people see me experiencing life, both in poverty and in riches, I think that breadth of experience is fuel to what I can bring to pass.
I want to ask you about living in Africa, because I spent time in Ghana and Senegal and Cote d'Ivoire and Egypt. And I spent time, I didn't live there, but I traveled there. And the one thing I'll say is that, yes, there is, I was with people who were struggling economically, but there was something about living close to the earth and the togetherness and the the belief in each other. Like there was a joy that came from that. And I don't think people necessarily, this is my theory, don't necessarily consider themselves as poor. What do you think?
Yeah. No, I think you make a really good point. And of course, there's the breadth of experience. I mean, one thing we do know, for all the progress we've made in the West, mental health is not one of them. It is, we can point to whatever, infant mortality or education or a bunch of other metrics, and we can go, oh, broadly over the last 50 years, we've made great progress on this, but suicide is up, mental health issues up, depression is up. And so, why is that? Have we lost? Like, make no mistake, if you're hungry, you really know that you're poor because, and if you don't have, food security or shelter or whatever. But I get your point that, like, societies which have more of a sense of community, more of a sense of the importance of family, of togetherness, mental health is a lot more resilient, robust in those communities. And here, when we're in our kind of like little bubbles and we're faces down, and there's a lot of disconnection. And so, yeah.
One more thing, Sue. Let me jump in one more thing, because one of the things that I loved about being in Africa was that, and I remember this very clearly in Ghana, where I volunteered at a church. I saw a mom holding the hand of her teenage son walking down the street. Like there's that to me says a lot about life there, right?
Yeah, I mean, is that one of the things I find funny about Nigeria? And I haven't been to Sierra Leone, so I don't know if it's the same there. But in Nigeria, two friends will go hand in hand down the street together.
Yeah.
There is a certain joy to vivre. There's a certain connection. Like in the Yoruba culture, which is the part of Nigeria I come from. Your elders are so revered. It's a bit of an anathema to me that in the West, people like, oh, I'm 60. Oh, I just turned, it's such an embarrassment. Oh, I just turned 70. Oh, no, don't tell anybody. Oh, tell people I'm 30. Nobody does that in Nigeria.
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Like, the older you get, the more respect you get, the more, like, if I didn't go to greet my grandfather, I'd lay flat down, my head on the floor, like, before I'd even speak to him, because that's, wow, he's a real elder, So anyway.
He's got wisdom. Wisdom is underappreciated.
Yeah. So, like, I think different cultures have got different things right. And then the more we can kind of learn from different cultures and take what works and leave what doesn't, I think the better.
Yeah, like I think, here in the States, I remember wanting to move out of my house when I was like 16 years old. And you go to different countries, I know especially European countries, and, guys 40 years old are still living at home.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we'll ask the parents how they feel about that. But yeah.
But there is that closeness. I've seen guys who are so very, very close with their moms. I mean, it's just such a tight relationship.
Yeah.
Anyway, and not that it doesn't happen here, but I find in less fortunate countries, it's more of what you have as opposed to what you don't have.
Yeah, I think that there can be a lot of that mentality. I mean, certainly I've got, weirdly enough, the high school I went to was like 85% South Asia. It was 85% Indian, Bangladeshi, Pakistani, Sri Lankan. And so a lot of my friends, especially the Indian friends, they would stay, the guys and the girls would stay in their parents' house until they got married. And in many cases, these are people who went and got a degree in economics or working at PricewaterhouseCoopers, big player, making loads of money, but they don't move out of home until they're going to get married, because it was just like, So anyway, it's so fascinating how different places do it.
So I want to ask you about Handmaid's Tale, because the final season, I guess, comes out in the spring. Is that right?
Yeah. Do you want me to tell you the ending of that, by the way?
Yeah, no, please do not.
He always asks. He always asks, and then he says, "No, don't tell me." Like you're gonna tell him.
No. Yeah, no. Tell me the ending. No, but I would imagine sticking the land. I always think the final episode of a show is really tough to nail, and not every show does it. Were you, without giving anything away, were you happy with the way it sort of resolved, the way that it ended? Are people going to be satisfied? What do you think?
No, I think there's going to be a lot of disappointment, to be honest, reading it. No, I'm joking. I mean, it's, I think people will love it, is the short of it. I also think so much of the magic of Handmaids in any television show is what happens between the script and the production and the post-production. And none of those steps can be skipped. So we've got a great script, but there's a bunch more magic that's going to have to happen between now and the last episode for us to capture it. And maybe this is partly, you know, me trying to keep the pressure on myself. It's kind of like my mind thing of like, nothing's in the bag. Like, we still got to go and deliver. And what I love, I would almost say most about my opportunity to work with Handmaids is working with professionals who love their job. You know, 6 seasons in, I've guested on shows and I've seen people phoning it in. I know this, I can do it. And that is not the way it is on Handmaids. Everybody there, the camera operator, the focus puller is like a freaking rock star. He's like, they want it. Like the actors, the writers, they want it. And so anyway, all that to say is I have all the confidence it's going to be brilliant, because between now and when we release it, there's going to be a bunch of passionate professionals going to work to make it great.
I don't think I ever watched a show where it was like, I just don't know how much more I can take. Seriously. No, seriously. Because just the predicament of so many people's lives, and it just wasn't the women. Like, I look at your character, look at Luke, and you escape Gilead, you're separated from June, you find her, you go back, and then finally you're in a place where it feels safe, but she comes back with a child from another guy, and it's like, you think, oh God, we're finally together.
Right.
And then there's all these other issues that you have to deal with her. Right. And just the burden of like, and now she wants, now she wants to go back. And you, and then you have a child there that you have with her. So it's like, if you don't go back, then maybe you'll never see your daughter again. But if you do go back, you may not ever be free again. And then it's like, and what's the deal with her and Nick? Like, does she love him? Like I root for you all the way, in your relationship with her, but I totally understand the Nick part. I get the Nick part.
Yeah, listen,
it is a demanding show. It's a demanding show. I mean, you really feel it.
Yeah, it's a lot. It is a lot, and especially with all the ways it kind of resonates with what's going on in the world and stuff. I mean, it's people ask me like, is it really? Is it? I mean, yeah, it's hard, but it's what we want. Like, we want to cry till snot comes. Like, that's what actors really, they can't wait. So it's a joy to do, as weird as it sounds, as an actor, but yeah, it's heavy. And I think it's a testament to like people writing stuff that people really relate to. And we live in a world where there's lots of immigrants and refugees. We live in a world where there's lots of heartbreak and people who have kids with other people, and we have to deal with those things. And so, yeah, I love it.
I have one other question. It's based on a book, obviously, but the book kind of ends, and then the series really took off, because it didn't give you everything in the book. As an actor, does it? I don't know if you read the book or you read the book of something that you're going to be acting in. Does it hurt or help to read the book?
I read Handmaids, which I recommend it to everybody. Go buy it and read it, or even listen to it. It's a very good audiobook. But I don't know, when it comes to source material, I often just follow my intuitions. I definitely looked through Handmaids. There wasn't a lot about Luke in the novel. I'm a kind of like, I'll just pick what's useful. I played Mercutio, and so I developed my own Mercutios to play. And then right at the end of the last week, I started watching other versions of Mercutio, and I might be like, oh, that's an interesting way of thinking about that line, or that's an interesting physicality moment he used during the fight. And then I'll just kind of like magpie it a little bit. But yeah, I don't know. I check it a little bit. Maybe there's something useful in there.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of I work in sports for ESPN, and a lot of broadcasters will say, I don't want to listen to any other broadcaster. Like Vin Scully was like this, who was the voice of the Dodgers. I don't want to listen to anybody else because I don't want to pick up any of their phrasing or you know, all that kind of, so it's not necessarily that way for you.
No, not at all. Because I don't know. Who was, I can't remember who it's attributed to, you know, like amateurs borrow, professionals steal. I don't know about all that, but I would say that we've, as artists, we have an opportunity to learn from other artists, and then I'm never going to be a facsimile. Like, I'm not a good mimic, you know, I'm never going to be able to just do what they did, but I can channel some parts of it and come up with something new, you know. And so, my goodness, no, all the time. I was telling Ann Dowd when I first met her, is that I remember when I watched her in The Leftovers, and she did some stuff in The Leftovers that I literally went pause, and I ran and got a notebook and started making notes. And that night on stage, I did some things that she was doing, because it's like, my God, you know, why am I not going to take from great people and make it my own? My goodness, I'm all about it. Yeah.
Very cool. Well, listen, OT, this has been awesome. I would love to have you back, whatever the next thing is.
Let's do it.
Because you're terrific, and I want to let everybody know that No Good Deed is streaming on Netflix. Final season of Handmaid's Tale coming to Hulu this spring. And if you want to watch a great sleeper comedy, really, really funny, check out Maxxx on Hulu. Great stuff. OT, thanks for coming on, man. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure. Let's do it again.
There you have it. O-T Fagbenle joining us from No Good Deed. You got to check out Maxxx Sue. I really, last night I put it on. I'm like, I'll watch 30 minutes to get a vibe about OT. And then all of a sudden I'm in episode 2, then I'm in episode 3. It is really, really funny. He's playing just a train wreck of a guy.
I need more comedy in my viewing, because I watch a lot of dark stuff, and I like thriller, spy stuff.
I feel the same. You know what I've been watching, which is actually good and light, is the Ted Danson show, Man on the Inside.
Yeah, you know, I gotta go back
to
it. It's okay. I mean, I think people just try to sell it a little too high for me. So, you know what I mean? It was like, oh God, this is like the greatest new show, and it's good. It's good. It's not great.
Yeah, it's hard to find half-hour comedies. Nobody's doing it. Everybody's doing long and dour and, you know, scary and exciting and all thrillers and all that stuff.
I want to go back to Abbott. I want to go back to Abbott Elementary, which I shunned in the beginning. I was like, I'm not interested. I'm not watching it. And of course, you know, it's network television. I'm not going to like it. It's such a funny show.
Yeah. By the way, network television, I'll say this. I don't know. Have you watched any of Kathy Bates? In Matlock, right? Yeah, Matlock.
I haven't, but I heard it's great.
She's amazing. She is so good, so good. And it took, I mean, it's Kathy Bates, right? It's Academy Award winner Kathy Bates doing network TV, but it's a great, great show. So some stuff is still happening on network TV. Hey, thank you very much to OT for joining us. Thank you very much for watching, and thank you very much for listening. And we will see you next time on the Culture Pop Podcast.